Hey, welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. We are now into another block of material, lesson 78 from the old classroom. Video lessons here. Remember, everything I'm trying to do is help you win your fantasy football drafts. It's not, in my opinion, something simple. What you're seeing is my process. It doesn't have to be yours, but I think if you follow mine, you're going to be so deep in all of it that it will just come naturally to you. It will just roll right off. So now I'm switching to a focus on team speeds, and I want to consider run and passing percentages of teams. I think there are connections. I think we will see that. And it's good to consider how fast a team is and what is that meaning for the upcoming 2021. And also early in the season when teams are establishing their offense, you can start seeing some team speed patterns, and that can potentially help you in trades or waiver wire, these kind of things, trying to pick up for everybody else is awake to what's going on. At least that's the idea. Let's see here. So, without further ado, let's move here to looking at team speeds last 5 years from 2016 2020, and this is in seconds. Okay, so when you see 1845, for instance, Baltimore 2016 right here, that's in seconds. So divide that by 60, whatever that is, and that would be the number of minutes spent on offense uh, uh, during that time on average. So this is an average here. And you can roll across 17, 18, 19, and 2020. So last year, I also circled the top five as far as speed of teams last year and all the preceding years, and you can see. And then I gave and calculated an average of the averages over the 5 years and sorted that from high to low. And the high teams are in the deep blue. The slow teams are in the red here. So we clearly have some different strategies and offenses here, the faster teams and the slower teams. And we have, above average, below average here. Here's the variance and how much variation the teams have shown. So, for instance, New Orleans, and this year may be an exception, but one of the lowest variance in the league. They consistently have this team speed near 1875 seconds per game. So versus something like Green Bay, where there's a lot more variation. Look at 1716 seconds to 1917, and was last year. So lots more variation. So shifting patterns there. Anytime you see variation, that's a good indication that there's going to be some uncertainty, and that leads to your decisions tend to be a little bit more uncertain, and you need to consider that. Also calculate the difference in team speeds from last year to the year before, just to see who's been moving up and down. And we can see that Carolina, Green Bay, the Chargers, and Pittsburgh were moving up, getting faster. The Rams were getting faster, and Washington and Miami were getting faster. So And the slower teams were the Jacksonville, Houston, Tampa Bay, New England, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. And notice Tampa went down a little bit. So it doesn't mean necessarily how good or bad a team is. It's just noteworthy about their speed, and I think I'm going to make some more connections about that in this series here. So just kind of wait for the bigger pictures here. So just it's good to think about teams on offense. One might consider the more time a team spends on offense, maybe the more time a team would have to score, their players score more fantasy points. Could be, so we'll see. But then good teams that are very efficient might be very uh, slow and versus very speedy teams. So just we'll see how it all works out. But I wanted you to at least be aware of team speed here. And here's the visual of the average of total time of the offense from high to low. You can see Baltimore to the Giants here. You see the variation across the league here. So notice you have low levels of team offense, so very little time spent on offense, but you still have a lot of variation here. And then here's the differences, certainly teams above and below, kind of the average of that would be probably about right there maybe. So key teams that have moved up versus declined here over this time and see what it all means. Here's Tampa Bay right there, gone down. But that didn't hurt them as far as winning the Super Bowl, did it? So again, this is just another way to start thinking about team speeds and time of on offense. And here is teams that this is their time of home. So the time they spend on offense is either slower or faster. And on home, so home games, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Chargers, Rams, New England, New Orleans, Carolina, Pittsburgh, and Seattle tended to spend a lot of time on offense at home. And the teams that didn't spend a lot of time in their home were shown here. So here's Tampa Bay. I think that's interesting. Here's the variation, and here's the differences here on the home. So this is the home behavior that teams displayed over the last 5 years. And then we also have a difference here. The Chargers went up and improved their home time of offense, 195. Pittsburgh and Carolina also improved. Okay, from the last 2 years, Green Bay improved, the Rams improved, Miami improved. So some teams were going up and spending higher times on team offense, home offense versus the preceding year, 2019. So just starting to get this feel of teams that are going to spend a lot of time on offense versus those that don't. And here's the visual of that. Again, looking across the time spent from Philadelphia to Detroit. So Detroit at home, in some ways, spent very little time on offense compared to Philadelphia there. So one might predict some differences in how games proceeded, how passing, rushing, different kinds of things were unfolding here. Here's the variation as well across the league. Seemed to be a little less variation than we saw the total time. And then here's the differences in green, and I marked above or below, so improving or declining in team speed here. Here is away offense, and here are the top teams that spent a higher amount of time on their offense in away games. New Orleans, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Green Bay, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City. Carolina improved and Pittsburgh improved from 2020 to 2019 here. So you can start seeing teams that spend a lot of time on offense in away games, which is interesting. I think if you're paying daily fantasy sports and these kind of things, there may be some secrets here on time spent, in certain players, certain conditions, passing, rushing, these kind of things. I think you definitely need to keep this in your fingertip knowledge here. And you can always come back and see this video or write this down if you want. So this is away team offenses. And here's the visuals here, and here's the zero time for the differences. See what teams improved in their time of offense from 2020 to 2019. The time away went from New Orleans was spent the most time versus the Giants, the least amount of time in away games. So again, knowing that might give you some insight into how a team may perform, okay, away versus home, and as far as passing, rushing, these kind of things. So hopefully all this is going to give us some deeper insights here. At least I'm hoping that. And here is the percentage pass and run of teams over this 5-year period. And this is the sorting here. I sorted by run. So 2020 average of run percentage. Baltimore was the top, and the worst was Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville really need some rushing here. So you can see kind of patterns. So if there's a lot of run percentage, then there tends to be a less passing. So when people were picking Baltimore wide receivers up, just realize they have the worst by far of any team in 2020 of passing. Not so good. And even here's 2019. Wasn't too good either. So 43, and it didn't get much better, 42%. So I showed you 2019 and 2020. So you need to consider the good news and the bad news. And certainly teams like, say, New England, look, it was 58% in 2019, dropped down passing, dropped down to 47%. That's not good. So what are we going to get for 2021? Tennessee, near average. Cleveland, dropped down. New Orleans, dropped down. Minnesota, moved up a little bit. Green Bay, went down. Indianapolis, went up a little bit. So you can see who's going up and passing and who's, really going down. Jacksonville really did well. It was passing. Pittsburgh, here's Tampa Bay, our Super Bowl champs. They were third in passing percentage of their offense. They were just throwing it. Brady was just throwing it every which way. Okay. Stanford, Matt is gone. So Detroit, who knows what's going to happen there, but they were a pass-happy team. Watson may not be with Houston. They were pass happy. Mahomes was pass happy. Okay, Matt Ryan's pass happy, so that's why people are really jumping on uh, some of the remaining wide receivers here in Atlanta. So you can definitely use this in 2021, making predictions of where your running backs versus your wide receivers may get more play, certainly understanding that percentage. But there is variation across from 2019 to 20, so just realize that things are going up and down. So I sorted again by uh, run percentage here and showed you in green the highest run teams, and then this in red would be the least running teams. So they're usually the highest passing. So it's reciprocal, okay? And so then you'll like this. I actually sorted 2019, but I kept the team uh, coloration based on 2020. So we can look back, and everywhere you see a deep green, 2020 was high in rushing. Uh, yeah, so you see that, you can look and see where they ended up in 2019 here. So just think about that. For instance, Jacksonville was 60 and 65. So, uh, you know, it's good to consider how things are changing and not changing, and looking extremes and looking improvements and decline, depending on how you see. If I was standard scoring leagues, I think I would definitely be looking at run percentages and giving teams such as Baltimore and Tennessee, etc., more play than I would maybe in a PPR uh, team here, unless the running backs can catch passes, which some can. And here's the averages, by the way, as well, almost the same average, league average of 57 and 43%. So even the average team is skewed to passing. So you can see that here's near the average here. Okay, so these teams are, as far as passing, below average and really below average here on passing versus rushing. So here is the Baltimore to Jacksonville and percentage passing versus average run percentage. And you see kind of, let's call this orange, the areas of kind of average or near average or standard deviation. So we're looking for extremes here. And we see some extremes on passing here. Here they are. And then the rushing teams here. Okay. So Kamara, Cook, these kind of things. Notice that Carolina last year was down here, but we assume that McCaffrey, since he wasn't there a lot, Carolina was not running as much as maybe they will this year. We'll see. So tended to be run heavy, tending to be pass heavy. Good to understand this. Fingertips for your drafting, you just need to go ahead and memorize this so you can, especially in a time draft, that's why I do slow drafts. People say, oh, I want to get it over with. I don't. I need time to think and cogitate, and plus, if you piss everybody off in the league, I'm sure, uh, you know, it kind of makes me a little gleeful here because I don't know what they're doing, drinking a six pack in between their picks or something. That's good. I want to give them plenty of time to get worked up, and a couple of bottles in. That's all good for me. So there's the average passing and run. You can see where teams fall from 2020. And again, this is not meaning we've done our research for 2021. All this means is this is a good place to start, okay? A good place for our research, right? So, I never am satisfied with last year's data, but I do use it as kind of a direction, you know. So it's going to be rare, for instance, that Baltimore go from extreme running to extreme passing. That would be, I mean, people want to talk about surprises. That would be a surprise. I would think Baltimore's going to run a lot. Okay. I think Jacksonville's going to pass a lot. So early in the season, we'll see if some extremes are happening. For instance, if Jacksonville's running all the time, first 3 or 4 games, that's really going to be intriguing. Uh, that kind of thing. It will maybe tell you how you should trade and pick up some waiver wire picks and these kind of things. So just keep what people are seeing. People are still thinking 2020. It's hard to imagine 2021 and ADPs and what does that really tell me about the team? People are not thinking that way for 2021. They're remembering what they saw last year and all the touchdowns and the sensational biases that people have. Okay, so you have an advantage. You know where you start, but then you're looking to, expecting change. What teams are going to have the change, right? Well, you figure Carolina is going to be a lot more passing to the RB. Okay, that's going to be a change. What teams are getting new quarterbacks? That's going to be a change. So you could start here, but then mark and make predictions based on what changes in coaching and systems and these kind of things. Make some predictions. Use some of your data, some information. If the ADPs are saying, hey, this team really has great wide receivers, but they're run heavy, what does that mean? Okay, who's right? Something going on that you're missing. That's what I always assume. I'm missing something. Okay, don't ever assume, well, I'm right and they're wrong. It's better to, maybe I missed something. Better to run it down and do your research that way. It's worth your time. So differences again, 2020-21 pass versus rush ratio here. And I looked at above average, so skewed to the pass versus more skewed to the run from 2020 versus 19. So these teams were increasingly rushing. In purple, these teams were increasingly passing. Okay, so things are happening right now. This is going to affect 2021. So just consider what might be going on. And again, I just went through all the changes. But this is a good place to start. This is a nice little figure. I think I made a bar graph of this. Yeah, I made a bar graph. Yeah, I like that. So increase passing, increase rushing. So for 2021, what do we expect? Well, I don't expect extremes. So I don't expect New England to go from lots of rushing to all of a sudden the top passing team in the league, or San Francisco do a lot of rushing, but they were trying to incorporate passing. So some of this is showing maybe the teams are making some changes as well. So I think this is really starting to nail down some potential trends for 2021 based on 2020 versus 2019. What was happening last year, is this going to continue movement and activities there? So I say do that and think about that. So I've got, I think, about 6 more lessons here, and I think I'll get into much more detail about this. Just setting the table right now. So coming back to time of offense here, I'm not going away from that at all, but I'm kind of trying to cover both, so you can probably guess I'm going to think about the time of offense versus passing and rushing. Yes, I will be doing that. So we'll have some clearer answers after we go through this block. Okay, make sure you come back. We're having lots of fun in the process. Woo woo.